So far, there's no one here. Hi, Liz. Hi, Liz.
Just in case. She needs
Can you hear me, Liz? Connecting to audio. Are you there?
There we go.
All
I'm
right.
here. I'm the only one.
So far, well, it's still 11 o'clock. So typically
Okay.
that
I
would,
tried to be on time. I had another one right before this on Mondays and Wednesdays, 9 to 11. So.
okay. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. I'm not sure how this is going with everybody. I haven't done a class meeting with Zoom yet. So I'm still sort of figuring this out. I mean,
I like your background.
That's the view out of my office.
Lucky.
Yeah, that's Reno, you know, so we live up here in the mountains. So that was
Is there snow right now?
There's a little snow left, but this was taken about 2 weeks ago. We had a pretty nice little storm come through here, and so that was taken about 2 weeks ago. So yeah, it's pretty beautiful up here. You can't complain.
Oh wow. Nice.
So Liz, so tell me, how are you doing in the class, and what are you thinking? And
I have a lot of work to do still. Because so for phase one, I watched the first videos that you sent out, and I kind of cross compared on what you had on the Planomaly website.
Yeah.
Is that how you say it?
Yeah, Planomaly.
So I got all the instructions. I got the instructions from there, and I kind of just looked at your examples of sample projects. And so the next step would just be putting all the content that I have gathered into a little text document and kind of throwing it out on the page.
Right.
I definitely need to watch the saw you questions prepared because I didn't even have time to watch the videos just yet. But I probably will have some questions, but I think it's pretty straightforward assignment. I'm saying that now before I even done anything, so we'll see. But it looks like it'll be fun. I actually was thinking I had a hard time with grids before because I think I have a hard time planning it out.
Right.
So I think that this might be an easier approach for me, being able to go with the flow of it, because
Right.
I think I won't feel so restricted. I think it'll be more organic. So I'm kind of excited.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, that's the beauty of this particular process, is that you can essentially lay it out how you'd like it to look, and you're not really limited by a standard grid, right? Which is basically 3x4 or whatever it happens to be. This is dynamic, and so you can just lay it out and then figure out for example, let me share my screen here for a moment. Let's see what's on my screen. How many desktops do I have? I have too many. I think it's this one. No, it's desktop. Where did my, hold on a second. All right, clearly, desktop one. Okay, hold on a second. Let me try this. Okay, I got it. Okay, here we go. All right, so let me slide Zoom over there and let me hide that, and then let's go to Illustrator. Okay, so if you look at that particular process, you just kind of lay everything all out and just kind of like have a good time. Just what do I have, and then you just put it all out there, and you don't even lay it out. You just
that's phase two, right? Like I'm not behind yet, right? This is phase two of the project, is to put everything on it.
That's correct. Yeah, you're not behind. This is exactly where you should be, because what we did in the last one was just, hey, let's play around with this grid, see what it looks like, see how it works. So with this process, then you just sort of throw everything out there. And on a complicated page, a complicated project, you would have multiple artboards, or you'd have multiple spreads in InDesign. Are you working in InDesign?
I for the phase one I did Illustrator. I didn't know which one you prefer us to use, because you said we could use either for.
Yeah, I think if you know InDesign, this project is easier in InDesign. And so the final one will definitely be easier in InDesign. Illustrator, you can do it because you can have multiple artboards and all that. But the beauty of InDesign is it's designed to do publications. And so it's a stronger tool for this particular thing. So what you would do then is
And
you'd
it's
figure out how
60
many pages you'd need to have. And in this project, you'd have 6 per chapter. And we're only going to do 2 chapters, which would be 2 projects. And so you'd have 12 pages total. And so you would just
Oh,
throw,
I thought we were doing 3 of the projects.
well, I decided to cut back on it and
Okay.
do only 2, only because I'd like to have a little bit more time to do the final, because the final really is like the capstone project, and it's a beautiful project. And I think if I give everybody a chance to really do a good job at it, I think that would be a more valuable experience. So, and you'll learn what you need to know in 2 projects for this project. So if you do project 1 and 2 or 2 and 3 or whatever you want to do, you'll learn what you need to know. And so the third one would
Okay.
sort of be superfluous. So anyway, you just basically throw everything out there, and however many artboards you have or how many spreads you have, you just divide up the content onto the different pages, and then you just sort of see what you have. And then you kind of just lay it out. What is it, make it look cool, and it doesn't really matter, about structure yet. All you're trying to do is just make it look nice. And that's what I love about this, because I'm kind of an intuitive designer just like you. And I always found grids to be kind of restrictive. And so this allows you to be creative and then figure out what is actually going to work for the grid. So anyway, so then you just lay it all out, and then let's see. I'm gonna have to move that a little bit. My control panel's in front of my. So then after you've got it all laid out, you look at your perimeter and you say, well, what shape would fit would fit best around what I've thought would be cool? And so that's your parent rectangle. And so if I'm working horizontally. This grid works vertically too, but it's easier horizontally at first. Vertically, it's tricky because you can end up with a grid that looks very geometric and very like symmetrical. And with the horizontal, it's a lot easier to do asymmetrical designs, which I think are more interesting. So you throw that main primary, the parent rectangle around the outside perimeter. And whatever that ends up being, it could be a root 3, probably a root 2, because we're kind of geared toward that proportion just because of 8.5 by 11. So root 2s are typically the ones, but I'd like you to explore another one as well. So anyway, root 2 would fit around this. And then you're looking for something that would go, that would divide the space. And so we're looking for a parent. So in this case, there's 2 things that would actually work here. One of them is a square. And the other one, which is interesting, was, let me just go for my root rectangles. Copy the root rectangle. And you can also, this was amazing when I actually figured this out. It's like, this is a root 5 right now. And the root 5 divides it perfectly horizontally. And you wouldn't use 2, mind you. You'd only use the square or the root 5. So you can divide it vertically or you can divide it horizontally, whatever you want to do. In this particular demo, I chose to do it vertically. So I'm going to just delete that just to show you that you can do both. Okay. And then you go, okay, well, I need to start looking for some subdivisions. So at that point, you start drawing diagonals. You can, Jeff Brewer was pretty observant. He was working with this and he said, well, you could just design the whole grid using all the diagonals and everything, and then you can just start working with the grid. And he was right. You can do that. Let's see, hold on. Alyssa's here. Let me add her. Okay, Alyssa just is signing in here, so I wanted to add her while she's waiting here. So there's Alyssa. Let's see.
I have a quick question on how you made the rectangle. So when I made the grid, I started out with, I just created a rectangle in Illustrator, and then I made a square that fit in there. But then it wasn't perfect, like 1 to 0.618 ratio. So I didn't know how you calculated that because I am terrible at math. I'm good at drawing shapes. So
Okay.
I like would match the height of the rectangle with the height and the width of the square. So it
Okay.
like worked out.
Okay.
Is that a way to do it?
No, actually, what you want to do is, okay, so let's look at the root rectangles. The root rectangles are based off a square, as is the golden section. So what happens is that you have the square, and then you take a diagonal of the square and you rotate it down to the horizontal, and where it hits the horizontal, that creates the root 2.
So then what is the angle that it's going down at to equal the proper root 2? Like,
Okay, here's the
so I'm
diagonal,
taking
right?
that exact,
Okay, so
yeah.
if you have a square, you draw a diagonal from corner to corner. And then you
Uh-huh.
can, let me see, where's my rotator tool? There it is. And then you take it and you use the rotator tool and you click on it and then you just drag it and you see how the diagonal comes down. And then
Oh,
when it hits the
okay.
horizontal, that's where the root 2 starts. Okay, so now
Got
that's,
it.
okay. Let me
So you
undo.
start with a square.
Yeah, you always start with a square.
I was going backwards.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, that's the beauty of this whole thing. So let me quickly go find that. Let me hide Illustrator for a moment. Let me find that hide Illustrator. And then let me
So I wonder if these same tools are in InDesign or if I should create my roots in Illustrator and bring the image of the grid into InDesign.
You can do both. I think it might be
Awesome.
easier to use Illustrator. I'm an Illustrator kind of junkie. I've been using it forever, so I always, that's my go-to to start things. So I would build it there, but you can do it in
Okay.
InDesign as well. Um, I'm looking
Okay.
for I'm looking for one thing here.
I
Hold
have a
on.
little more experience with Illustrator, so it makes sense to probably start there.
Yeah. So let me just
I
quickly.
didn't realize you could rotate the line though. That was such an optical illusion.
Yeah.
It became longer.
You're like, wait a
Cool.
minute, how does that work? I guess it's good that we're having this meeting then because, okay, just wanted to
I
find,
did have more questions than I thought.
yeah, see, that's how it works, right? Okay,
Yeah.
here's the golden section. Okay, so let me pull up these 3. And so with the golden section, what happens is again, you start with a square and then you draw 2 diagonals from corner to corner, and that gets you the half of the square. So we're looking at 1/2 of the square. You then draw a diagonal to that half. So that's the line you're looking at. Then just like we saw in the root rectangles, what you do is you take that diagonal and you rotate it down till it hits the horizontal, and that creates your golden section.
Okay.
So your
And
number,
this is, I'm
go
gonna
ahead.
take a screenshot. Taking a screenshot.
Yeah,
There we go.
this is actually in the videos too. So when you go
Okay.
to,
I remember seeing it.
yeah, when you go to the concept videos, I do the same thing. So, and I'm going to read, looks like Lisa left. I wonder why she left. Oh, well, it's you and me. so that, so that's how the golden section works. And the thing with the golden section is it's actually kind of hard to work with because it's like this perfect form. And it seems like if you use it as a parent shape, you can't use a square because what'll happen is you'll end up with a million golden sections. And it just kind of, it's kind of weird. So if you do decide to use a golden section as your parent, then what you'll want to do is you'll want to subdivide it with a root 2 or a root 3 or something else so that you don't get a bunch of little golden sections. I have found that with this particular grid process, though, that the root rectangles are actually a superior tool for creating dynamic grids. It just seems like the grids look more interesting and they're a little, I guess, a little easier to build. And I also uploaded this Illustrator document to the download folder. up on the server, the one student download folder. So you'll find
Okay.
you'll find that there as well. And actually, if we go to CyberDuck, let me go over here. Okay, so here's CyberDuck, and then in 185, you'll see dynamic grid resources, and inside of there, you will find. Come on, you can do it. Had to log in. You will find the AIs, the Adobe Illustrator files for all the golden sections and the dynamic grids. So, so you'll have all the root 5, all the root rectangles, all of the golden section rectangles. These are the roots, and these are that process that I was just showing you, which are the this process right here, where we're going through this. So those are also in Illustrator, and you'll see these as well. So anyway, getting back to this, is this making sense so far, Liz?
Yeah.
Okay, so Lisa's back. Let's see if we can get her. There she is. Hi, Lisa. Hello? Can you hear us? Elisa. Hello? Elisa? Hello? Can you see us, Elisa? Can you hear us? Hello? Lisa? Lisa, can you? Hello? Looks like she's having trouble. Yeah, this is all new, you know, this whole COVID thing and turning all these classes online. It's kind of crazy. Let's see, somebody is trying to do something up here.
Oh, the audio is like there's like another thing that pops up when I got into the Zoom meeting. It said like I had to approve the audio.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yay, there she is.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi, Lisa. Good to see you.
Hello.
Hello.
Zoom.
Okay, good. I'm glad you're here. So Liz is here and I'm here. And so right now it's just the three of us. So anyway, Liz had a question about how to start laying out this process, how to work with the grid. And she had said she was more of an intuitive designer. And that's one of the reasons I actually designed this, is because I'm an intuitive designer as well. And I found using these this dynamic grid was way more fun and more, and just, I don't know, just more intuitive. So this is on the videos that I uploaded already, but I wanted, since she had the question, I might as well just sort of talk about this now. So what we were talking about was how to get this thing started. And so this particular project is going to have only 2 chapters. I decided not to do 3 only because I want to get started on the final sooner than later. So you'll only pick either project 1 or project 2 or project 3, any 2 of those 3. It doesn't really matter which ones. My recommendation is to pick something that you have a lot of content for. Like project 1 probably had a lot of content. That might be a logical one. 2 and 3, it depends on how many. You did a lot, Elisa, so maybe 3 might be a good one for you. So
we're doing 3 spread?
Okay, so what we are doing is this, okay? And I just uploaded all this stuff yesterday. So there's going to be 2 chapters, and each chapter is 1 project. So let's just pretend this is project 1. So you'll have a spread 1, and you'll have 1 spread with a left page and a right page. And then you'll have a second spread with a left and a right, and a third with a left and a right. So on the first spread, you will have the grid with the diagonals, and then on the right page, you'll have a title of the project, and you'll have the grid, but all the diagonals are removed. Okay, so then on the second spread, you'll have a left and right page, and you'll have the design all laid out. and you will have used the grid, but you'll have the grid turned off, so that all we see is the real design. And then in the third spread, you'll have, it's the same thing, except that the grid is turned on. Okay.
Okay.
Did you see the video that I posted yesterday? Have you looked at that yet?
Not yet yesterday. Not
Okay.
yet. But
Okay.
the other videos I saw.
Okay, so so I posted all this yesterday, and so I'm basically going over what's in the video, so you can always watch that, and you know.
Okay.
And I also have an example project that covers this really, really, really well. And so I think when you see the example project, it'll make a lot of sense. So what I'm trying to do in this particular session is to basically answer questions and to, you know, see if everyone's on track, essentially. So I don't want to go through that whole video, because you can watch that whenever you're ready. Getting back to the thing, to the demo here. So you basically put all your content out on your 3 spreads. So for, let's say, project 1, you just throw everything out there on the 3 spreads and see how it looks. And then you divide. In this particular case, if it's project 1, you'll probably have 2 pages. You can have more, but if you could probably do it all in 2 pages. So you just sort of put all the content out, and then you divide it up and make it look nice. Just make it look cool. And that way you're kind of designing intuitively and not so much by the grid. And so once all the work is laid out and you have all this done, then you decide what shape, what root rectangle fits the perimeter of what you just did. And so we tend to kind of go for this 8.5 by 11 sort of proportion. And so you'll probably find that a root 2 rectangle fits that perimeter really well, and that's fine. So then you use the root 2 as your parent, and then you subdivide it. And in this case, I was looking for, I noticed that I had designed a strong vertical alignment, and I also had a strong flow line. And what was interesting here was that on the root rectangles, if I were to select a root 5 and copy that and bring that over and paste that root 5 and scoot that over and then scale it, you'll notice that horizontally, the root 5 divided the space perfectly. And so you don't want to do both. You only want to pick a square or a root 5 or whatever the shape happens to be. So you only want to use one primary rectangle to subdivide your space. In this sample, I used the square, so I'm going to delete that root 5. And then you start looking for reasons why you put things where you did. And so then you start looking for places to draw horizontal and vertical subdivisions. So in this case here, I drew a diagonal from corner to corner of my parent shape. And where it crosses that square, that's a conjunction, and that creates a first generation division. First generation divisions come from the intersection of the diagonals to the parent to the primary shape, or from a diagonal to another diagonal. So we'll talk about that in a minute. So I was looking for a horizontal, and I'm like, okay, cool. Just exactly where that crosses that square, that's going to be a perfect spot for this upper group of text and images. And then I was looking for something, why did I put the picture where I did? And so now I'm looking for a vertical that would tell me why I put the picture there. And so by drawing that diagonal, which is the diagonal of the remaining shape, the shape that's left over after I add the square to the root 2, that's the remaining shape, which is still dynamic. And then I drew the diagonal of that, and then I found a vertical for that particular one. This is what's known as a second generation subdivision, because it comes from the intersection of a first generation and a primary diagonal. And that becomes a second gen division of space. So just to get the terminology down, the strongest divisions are first gen, and then the second obvious strongest are second gen. Okay, so then I start working further to find more stuff. And this is a fun part. You can start kind of hunting. You're looking around for, you know, places that will create certain kinds of divisions. And so, you know, for example, here now I drew this diagonal here, and it crosses that first generation that we found. It also crosses this first generation. And so basically what we're doing is we're basically just subdividing the space. Now the video, I'm kind of rushing through this. The video is a little bit more clear. And if we actually want to talk about this for a moment, let's talk about deconstructing shapes for a second. So here's the square, which is our primary. Here's the root 2, which is our parent. And so, let's see, I need to move that down. And then, so these diagonals are all your primary diagonals. You're basically drawing a diagonal to the square here and here. And you're drawing diagonals to the parent shape, which are here and here. And then you're drawing diagonals of the shape that's left over, which are here and here. So these are all your primary diagonals. That's all there are, okay? If you just take the confluence of all of these intersections, you'll find all of the first generation divisions. Okay, so this is just showing you where they are, okay? So, you know, for example, where the 2 cross there, you have a vertical and you have the horizontal, which of course is also reinforced by all of the diagonals there. So that's right through the middle. As well, you have a diagonal, a division that comes from the intersection of the parent and of the primary. That gets you both the vertical and horizontal. So you can just sort of see how these all work. And again, this is all in the video, so you can also kind of play around with that. And so then once you have all of this, you still have places where the first generation lines cross, right? So all of these places are where the first generation divisions cross these diagonals. These create second generation divisions, okay? So I'm basically showing you all of the possibilities, okay? You're not gonna use all these, but they do, when you start looking for reasons for putting things where you did, these are the divisions you're looking for, and this is how you find them. And so then, let's see, wait, hold on. Okay, that was that, all right. And then, I didn't make any third gens. Okay, so so say you're looking for something up here. You know, we have this big block of space up here, and say we wanted to put a title there on a horizontal. How would you find that? So there's a couple ways you can do it. For one, we have this intersection here. That might work. So if I were to I'm going to just draw guides now, right? We could do something there. We could do something here or here. And you could also do something there. So right there. So you can find, this is how you hunt for your divisions in space. And so, like I said, you wouldn't necessarily want to have all of these grid lines in place. What you're trying to do is find the reason why you put something there in the first place. So if we're here and we're trying to figure out why we put something, that's when we start hunting for our divisions. And you use those diagonals and the intersections to find the divisions. And then once you get it to the point where you've got a grid that's pretty solid, then you just simply start tightening it up. You just move things into the grid because you already said, well, this is where it's going to be. And then after you design the grid, you just adjust position or size to get it to match the grid. And what it does is it validates your intuitive design. You're just like, I thought that was cool. Hey, guess what? It was cool. And so that's how the process works. You can certainly design the grid beforehand. There's nothing wrong with doing that. And if you're more comfortable with that process, that the dynamic shapes are still going to be there. You know, so now it's just a matter of deciding which ones you want to use. They're exactly the same shapes as when you're hunting around for them here, but here you're just deciding those are the divisions you want to use, and you'll use the grid that way. But all the shapes are still dynamic. It's just one is intuitive and one is pre-designed. Does that make sense? Yeah.
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 Professor.
Yeah.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Can we do like this?
I think I saw that in your first in the second.
Yeah, I have this.
Yeah. So what you can do, you don't want to divide the parent shape any more than with one shape. Okay. So this parent shape. If you start doing more than one shape, it starts to destroy the dynamic properties of the grid. So you only want to use one primary shape to divide it. It could be a horizontal shape or it could be a vertical shape, but you can only use one, because otherwise, like I said, it destroys the harmony that the two shapes create in and of themselves. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. And so, for example, here, let me just go back to the dynamic. Like I said, you can divide shapes with, let me just grab a root 4, for example. And let's go back to this and paste that. You'll also always want to make sure that the root rectangles are match two corners, okay? You can't float them like this. You know, you can't. So all I'm doing here is showing you a different way of dividing that space. You wouldn't want to leave the square in there. You'd want to only use this one, and this shape here, you'd want to get rid of. And that would be another way of starting a dynamic grid. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What did I just do there? I was looking for where I put that. Where did I put that? Oh, there it is right there. Okay. Okay, so any other questions?
So we're only we end up only using like this shape, or the horizontal or the vertical. That's it. We can't use like the one that I showed you, right?
Well, you have two divisions in there, and you don't want to do that. You only want to have one. Now, today I was going to make a video on how to work with a vertical grid. They're harder because they tend to create symmetrical grids that have a center line, and then everything is kind of equal on both sides. And so it's a little trickier to make a vertical grid. So I'm going to make a video on that today and post that. For now, I think it's just easier to work horizontally because the shapes are easier. They create more interesting shapes in the horizontal, and they're easier to make. So the root 2 is a typical shape because that's kind of what we're used to using, like in an 8.5 by 11. It's almost a root 2. And if we use the A4 size, which is the European size, that is a root 2 rectangle. Now, that's not to say you have to use that. You can use any size paper that you want. So I kind of encourage you to use a square because, again, the square is sort of a neutral shape, and then you can put either a vertical or a horizontal grid inside of that, and it will work just fine. And so you'll just end up with different size margins. But if you wanted to do something like let me go back to my roots for a second. And so say you wanted to use a root 3. It really, a square, a root 2, or a root 3 are probably the only shapes that work as outside parent shapes. Like a root 5, which is a really long horizontal, kind of as a parent shape, might not really work that well just because it's so long. But if you wanted to use a root 3, you could copy that, make a new document, and we'll just put that in A4, print A4, and we'll say create. So, well, I should have made that a horizontal. Let me make a new one. And let's see, we'll do an A4, print A4, but we'll do a landscape, and we'll say okay to that. Okay, so now here's an A4 shape, paper, horizontal, and if we paste a root 3 rectangle into that, and then scale it, you know, that's what a root 3 perimeter would look like in an A4 piece of paper. Okay, so that would be a way of doing it as well. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can either do that, or you can do, where's that? There it is. So a square subdivided by a root rectangle also works fine. So say, for example, if say this was our parent shape, we could take a root 2, scale it down, and make a grid like that. You could also, again, divide it vertically with an A3, with a root 3 or something like that as well. So it's there's a lot of ways you can start this. It's not like you have to think about it like an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? No? All good.
No.
Okay. So again, a lot of this, all this information is actually in the videos that I posted yesterday. I also put up the deadlines, the due dates for the different parts of the project. So those are up. Are you guys getting the event reminders that I send out?
Yeah.
By email, you are getting them? Because
Yeah.
I'm not getting them, so I'm never sure if you guys get them or not. I'm supposed to get them, and I get them from my other classes, but from this class, I don't get the event reminders. But if you do, it's the one that says what day and what time it's all due. So you guys get those? Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right, so I will just continue sending out those event reminders then as we get closer. Our next review will be Friday. Oh, how nice. Do you see that, the gift from Zoom? Do you guys see that on your screen right here? Yeah, you know, the Zoom and a lot of people have been really, really supportive of the fact that the entire world is now online. I thought someone also was coming in, but it's not. Okay, so I love it. They remove the 40-minute time limit. Oh yeah, we're at 40 minutes already. Okay, cool. So Friday, we'll have a look at your first shot at laying out one of the chapters, okay? And so basically, just get started using, if you want to approach the project from a intuitive way, like Liz would like to do, knock yourself out and have a fun time with that process. And Elisa, I don't know if you want to go, how do you feel about it? Would you prefer to go intuitive, or do you want to start with the grid first?
When I was starting it, I wanted it to do the grid first because I'm used to having it, aligned. So
Okay.
maybe I'll start with the grid. Yeah.
That's fine. I mean, both ways work perfectly. Just one is intuitive and one is pre-designed, but it's no different.
Okay.
Okay, good. So for Friday then, I'd like to see you guys come up with some experiments with your first chapter. Remember that this grid is something that is, it's highly fluid. It's not like any one solution is going to be like the best solution. It's really fun to kind of play around with the grid once you have it and put things in different places and experiment with scale and, you know, just really explore the fluidity of the project. Liz, you were in my graphic design 1 class, right?
Many years ago.
Many years ago. I wrote a book. I wrote a book during my sabbatical, it's an ebook, and I used the new FXL format in InDesign, the fixed layout, and I used the dynamic grid throughout the entire book. And I upload the chapters. Have you guys checked out the chapters and the typography stuff that I put in there? No, probably not. But
I will. That's on Cyberduck or on our.
it would be one of the links on the website. But tell you what,
Oh,
I'll
okay.
actually just put that up as an example of how it can be used. And I had never really used it in a really large document before. And so when I started using it for this textbook for Graphic Design 1, it was so much fun. It was just really it was just a blast. Actually, let me show you what it looks like real quick. Let's see, discussion. I'm looking for something here real fast. All right, let's go to 6. Okay, I'm gonna just pull this over here real quick. And so what this book is essentially it's done in the fixed layout, and it's so it allows you to have scrollers and interactive content, and everything's really slow. I'm on satellite here, so it's not like it's let me see what's going on here. There it goes. Okay, let's try that again. There it goes. And so there's always like an introduction page, and you can see even here I was sort of playing around with different columns and so on. It gets even more fun as I started playing around more with the longer content. But you can see how interesting the layout is. It doesn't look like a regular book, and so even things like these guidelines and where all these shapes are and the little fingers, all these are based off of the dynamic grid. And like I said, I just had a blast designing with it, which was kind of a validation of the coolness of it. So anyway, you know, and then there was it could have embedded interactive content and so on. So it was kind of fun. But anyway, it's a project that I used the dynamic grid with, and I have to say I thought it was pretty dang successful, if I do say so myself. Okay, so any other questions then? No?
Not right now. Are we meeting on Friday, or would you just want us to upload them and then you'll review them?
Typically, that's what I would do. But if you'd like to have another Zoom meeting, we can do that too. Sometimes that might even be better. You know, if we all had a time where we all signed on, like you and I could sign on at like 11, and then Elisa could come on at 11:15, and we could have a more of a dynamic conversation rather than me just making videos. We can certainly do that too. So if that sounds like fun, you know, I'm more than happy to do that, and I can record those sessions as well, and then post those for review later too. So you guys want to do that?
I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So we could, you know, ask questions also.
Yeah. So on Friday, what times are good for you guys? It's a non-class day, so anytime could work for me. So what about you guys?
This time, I don't know.
Yeah, this
I'm
time's good. Early afternoon.
Okay.
Yeah, this time.
All right, tell you what, I'll send a sign up out to you guys, and probably be in a Google Doc so that we can, move things around and edit as necessary. And then everybody can sign up for a time, and then we'll set up a Zoom for that time period, and then we can have an interactive discussion on that.
Cool.
Cool?
Okay.
Great. So that's what we'll do then. And I will see you guys on Friday. Try and have, a body of work done that you will have some solid questions. If there's only a very light amount of work, then there's not a lot we can talk about. So if you really work with it a little bit, I'd say give it 2 or 3 hours and just really solidly kind of get into it. And then really, once you get into it, you'll be like, oh, what about that? Or what about that? And your questions will be more focused. So, my internet connection's unstable. Really, you're kidding me. Okay, so give it a couple, 3 hours and get a grip on what's going on. And then I'll send out that sign up, what did you say, Wednesday? I'll send that out tomorrow. And then we'll have a little bit of a review on Friday. Sounds good?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great, thanks you guys. Thanks for showing up. We'll see you Friday.
Yeah.
Okay, take care.
Sounds good.
Bye.
Bye now. Let's see, end meeting.